now 5:30. We'll call this meeting to order. If everyone will please rise for the pledge. Councilor Martinez will lead us this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilor Martinez?
Here.
Councilor Schrader?
Here.
Councilor Lorenz?
Here.
Councilor Schleibach?
Here.
Mayor Garcia?
Here. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Any further discussion?
Well, who's the second? There are two of them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Seeing none, Crystal?
Councilor Schrader?
Here, or aye.
Councilor Martinez?
Aye.
Councilor Lorenz?
Aye.
Councilor Schleibach?
Aye.
Mayor Garcia?
Aye. Okay, moving on to proclamations, communications, and appointments. We have a letter of interest from Mariana, I guess it's Mariana King, to serve on the tree board.
I'd like to table this matter until the Public Works Director comes back from vacation.
Do I have a second to table the letter? Is there another motion?
I move to approve Mariana King's letter of interest to serve on the tree board.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, Crystal?
Councilor Schleibach?
Aye.
Councilor Schrader?
Aye.
Councilor Martinez?
Aye.
Councilor Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Garcia?
Aye. Okay, citizens' comments and special presentations. We have Micah Espinosa here to talk about the kid venture. I'm not sure is it like a,
Do you want me to stand up or? just
whatever you
go
feel
for it?
comfortable with.
Well, I'm kind of a loud guy, so. So if you have hearing aid, go ahead and turn it down real quick. So actually, I grew up in Monte Vista. I've been kind of, I moved away in 1999. I'll spare you all the details. Since I moved, I moved into a church where I've been a pastor at for the past 15 years. It's a fairly large church in Denver. We average about 1,000 in weekly attendance. Subsequent, as part of that, I direct a nonprofit, and I travel the country as a speaker and a trainer in regards to leadership development amongst young people and church leaders across the country. I've been able to work for the biggest platforms doing that on a national level, but I grew up here. I grew up here as a local kid who got involved in gangs, all this kind of stuff. And so last year I started getting hired by behavioral health, doing consulting with them, and just really had a heart for Monte Vista. So what I was able to do is come back to our organization and get our folks on board to say, hey, we want to adopt the San Luis Valley as a place we would bring resources to help the kids and ultimately to help whatever issues are going on. So that's really what we're here for, is to kind of affect community change out here. We've made a 3 to 5 year commitment to do this project, so we're not just coming, parachuting in once and leaving. So here's what we're doing. Kid Venture is a day camp, a 3-day camp for kids, where we keep them from 9 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. On the third day, we're having a big community rally, giving every kid that attends a backpack with school supplies, free food, jumping castles, all kinds of cool stuff. On that final night, we're going to have a movie night right out here, open for all of the community to come in. So that's what that event looks like. But there's actually a whole other strategy and reason for having that event. That has allowed us to bring the gatekeepers and the doers and the movers that want to work with kids all to rally around one project. The reason we're doing that is to identify the key leaders, to play in the sandbox together so that we can start dreaming about what we might be able to do next. So I'm kind of organizing, being a community organizer of sorts. My past, I've created leadership initiatives that one of them is actually a year-long leadership initiative that is accredited at a graduate level at Fuller Seminary in Pasadena, California. So we're going to bring that sort of training back over here. So here's the whole goal. We're doing the Kid Venture. We've got over 15 organizations right now that are part of what we're doing, that are playing in the sandbox together, if you will. Subsequent to this, we're going to create a leadership initiative out here for volunteer leaders, vocational, bivocational people that want to work with youth and young people. Again, my quiver is full of all kinds of those kind of trainings and things like that. Our goal is to do that every other month throughout the next year, so that when we come back, this collaborative that we're building, we're keeping them together. They're getting to know each other. We're giving them tools for the work that they do, so that next year we can do something even greater and bigger. Ultimately, this is something not a lot of people will say, but I mean, God has been super good to me. And that means I have a lot of resources to bring to bear, including financial resources. So we're really dreaming about what can we tap into here in Monte Vista in the San Luis Valley, so that we can adopt it. You know, maybe we start something, maybe we plug in, maybe we support something, but that's what we're doing. And so it's much bigger than just this event. That event's going to have a great impact on people, but there's another strategy around that, again, with the gatekeeper, so to speak, to come around and do that. I've done this in Denver. We've trained since 2007. I've trained over almost 3,000 youth leaders and youth workers in the Front Range area. And we hope to come and have an impact out of that collaborative. So, you know, I didn't quite know what y'all wanted to hear from me, but that's what we're doing. Rhonda had invited me to come and share with y'all. She thought it would be good for you guys to know about. And, you know, Lord willing, we can really build something out of this and not only have it at an organizational level, but start to engage the community, the parents, you know, and all these other folks that do have assets that they can bring to bear to meet the needs and struggles that are happening in the San Luis Valley. So that's what we're up to. When you all see me and you hear our name or you hear the name Kid Venture, that's the brand we're flying under with that work. You know, you now can associate a face with a name and with the organization. So one final piece about this that I didn't say is this is a valley-wide initiative. So we are actually, for that camp, we're running buses from down north, from Center, and from Alamosa. And I have leadership teams and collaboratives in each one of those communities already established. And so we're going to bring kids from all over the valley, and hopefully we hope that on that Thursday night of the camp, that translates to a lot of folks coming into Chapman Park to get blessed and get their school supplies and enjoy the family night and things like that. So that's what we're up to. I don't know if that is sufficient or if y'all have any questions, or what to say after that.
I know you have the event on Facebook, but for those that are here that maybe don't have Facebook, or do you want to give them the dates that you're doing this?
Do we have flyers here in the building somewhere?
I did have flyers up at the front desk.
Yeah. So the event is July 19th through the 21st. So that's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then the Thursday night will be the culminating event here at Chapman Park.
And I guess my other question I would have for you is, what do you need from the city? What can we bring to the table to help you, or what are you looking for as far as
I think
facilities? What are your needs?
Rhonda has been real good to us in helping us with the permits and things like that. Chief Grayson and I are going to meet tomorrow. I would say just to be friends, you know, and just to continue the journey like along this path, because you're going to see more of us and more of this collaborative around, and you know there might come a time where we need to ask for stuff. And on an individual basis, I'm going to go ahead and try to do this one. you know, this project is costing us $15,000. We have made a commitment as my church that we will underwrite that, but we are trying to get local folks to help to chip in on that. But in the event that we have a shortfall, we will underwrite the whole thing, and we plan on doing that for 3 to 5 years. Again, because God has been good to us, we have that surplus, and but we're trying to raise above and beyond that, so that this collaborative that's existing, so that when we continue to dream together, we have something in the tilt to say, hey, how can we really take this from being just meetings of like what we could do, but let's actually do something, you know? And so if anybody wants to help in that regard, you could go to gokidventure.org. It's on our flyers. They're right here at the front desk. And so, yeah, that's about it for now.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Jeremy?
There is one thing that I did mention that is not directly through the city council, but we are looking for, I've been arranging for a couple of buses that we need kind of at the last minute. They're coming from several of the local churches and everything else that's available, but the next step would be either through you know what I mean, through the school district. And that's there's been a little bit of resistance to that. I don't know if they're kind of getting away from doing that, but I was thinking I'd have some leverage there since I drive for the school district. But if and I don't know, the city council is, like I say, not directly involved other than being a part of the city. So if we had some kind of recommendation or encouragement in that regard, it might help. We'll be negotiating that next week. So just the fact that the council is aware of it and behind this whole process would be a huge help.
We need one more bus for Delmar. There's somebody, they fell through on us, and it looked like it was going to happen. We do have a budget to rent if necessary, but again, my favorite price is free. So yeah, that's the challenge there.
It's under. Is there any other questions? Any from the audience? Any questions? Are you having a question?
No, I'm
for
not
this?
with you.
Oh,
I
okay.
was
We'll get to you in just a second.
Okay.
Are you going to, you were talking about Senator Del Norte and Alamosa and Monte. Eventually, are you going to reach out to some of the more poor communities and here in the Santos Valley that don't have anything like that, like Romeo and some of those places down there?
Yes, we are, and we've already called all organizations out there, or churches, youth groups, things like that, and invited them at least to come to the bus stop or to come down here as something for their community, kids in their community. But as far as an official thing that we're doing out there, we haven't got that far down the road yet. But yes, we'd like to.
Any other questions for Ms. Espinosa? Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is Logan and Associates LLC to present the 2015 audit.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Logan. I'm the owner of Logan and Associates, the city's audit firm, and I'm here to present the results of the city's 2015 audit. And so you have two documents. I think you received it electronically, and then I brought bound printed reports tonight. So the one document is the financial statements. The other document is referred to as a management letter which I'll go through after I talk about the financial statements. So to start off with, kind of give you an idea of our audit process. We came to the city's offices twice. The first time was to do preliminary work, and so at that time, we kind of look at your internal controls over like cash disbursements, payroll, utility billing, receipt processes, to get an understanding of how the processes and procedures work, and to see if the policies and procedures that have been adopted by the city council are functioning as you intend. It also helps give us a comfort level when we come out in the second phase to audit the numbers. So the second time we come out, we actually look at the numbers of the funds. All the numbers in this document, all the footnote disclosures in this document are responsibility of the city's management. They're not our numbers. You hired us to audit the numbers and tell you if they are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for a municipality. And so we do that process. Part of the process is getting third-party confirmation with like your bank balances, investment balances, your loans that are out there. We also verify certain revenue sources. And so in doing all this, and these procedures, at the end, it gives us a level of comfort in order to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And so in this document that is referred to as the Independent Auditor's Report, which follows the table of contents, and basically it's a two-page document that to me on the top of the second page is the most important paragraph. It's our opinion paragraph. And so it is an unmodified opinion in accounting terms. And so what does that mean in layman's terms? That means it is a clean opinion. So that tells you that all the numbers in this document, all the footnote disclosures and supplementary information are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles for a municipality. That is the best that you can receive from an audit firm. What does that tell you as city council? That tells you that policies and procedures that you have put in place over the years are being followed. So that's one thing that hopefully that gives you a level of comfort to know that all the different funds that are under the council or under the city are being followed in accordance with accounting principles that are required. Okay, and so this document, it's primarily 5 parts to this audited financial statements. The first part is the management's discussion and analysis, and this all follows the independent auditor's report. Everything after that is responsibility of management. The management's discussion and analysis is primarily a narrative of what happened over the past year, of significant events, okay? Following the management's discussion and analysis on pages 1 and 2, those are your government-wide financial statements. And so several years back, the Accounting Standards Board for government entities said, we want governments to start putting together a financial statement that's similar to a business. And so what this shows you on pages 1 and 2, this is similar to what a business would show, okay? Statement of net position, that's your balance sheet. That's like a snapshot picture at December 31st of your assets, your claims against those assets, which are your liabilities, and your equity, or it's referred to as net position. Page 2 is your statement of activities. That's more like an income statement. And so that shows you your expenses, and then the revenues, referred to as program revenues that are directly related to those expenses by department, or general revenues, which are primarily your tax type revenues, okay? And so that's the government-wide financial statements. It's full accrual basis. Now the pages following, pages I believe 3 through 6, those are your fund financial statements. And what those are, that shows your general fund, your recreation fund, your other minor funds, your enterprise funds, the water and sewer funds. And so those are your fund statements. Those are similar to what you're used to seeing throughout the year. They're on the governmental funds are on what's called a modified accrual basis, which is very similar to a cash basis, budgetary basis, which that's how you guys kind of run your city, is based on your budget that you adopt, okay? So following those fund financial statements, then are the footnotes. And I shouldn't joke about it, but I always say if you have trouble sleeping at night, read the footnotes to your audited financial statements. So anyway, those are certain required disclosures by the accounting standards. Talks about significant accounting policies, talks about cash and investments, your capital assets, which are all your property, buildings, and equipment, your long-term debt, which a lot of that is debt related to acquiring those capital assets or constructing those capital assets, and then followed by some additional disclosures required by the accounting standards. The next part requires supplementary information. That's where you find your general fund budget and your major special revenue funds budget, which is your recreation fund. Okay, and then the last part of the report is your supplementary information. That's all the other funds. There's your other funds, they may seem significant, but from an accounting standpoint, they're considered not major, and so they are grouped in the back of the financial statements, and the totals are carried forward. And so following those are the budgetary statements by fund, and then the very end is the local highway finance report, which is required by the Colorado Department of Transportation to be included in your audited financial statements. So, you know, the document's a pretty thick document, but I will say, you know, that your accounting systems were very easy to use to get the information, to audit the information. So that was, you know, it made our job a lot easier. And so, you know, again, I won't go into detail on the financials unless you guys have a specific question. If you do come up with questions after I'm gone, you can get with Lisa or Forrest and they can email me and we'll make sure we get you an answer. As I tell Lisa and Forrest and their staff that, you know, we're your auditors. If there's questions that come up during the year, please contact us. We'd rather learn about it early on than after the year is over. It really makes things go a lot easier and smoother in the audit process, okay? So then the other document is what I refer to as the management letter. And so our professional standards require certain things for us to communicate to you, the governing council of the city. And so this first page talks about certain things we're required to do under our auditing standards. And then on page 2, there's several categories there. It talks about accounting estimates, significant accounting policies, significant audit adjustments, consultations with other independent accountants, issues discussed, you know, prior to us being your auditors, and then difficulties we encountered during the audit. Well, I will say the very last one there, if we had difficulties doing the audit, you would have heard from me before tonight. So you know, that tells you that the audit went very well from our standpoint. Again, accounting estimates, certain things are estimates in your financials, significant accounting policies. If there were big changes to your policies, that would be disclosed here. We did make some adjustments to the financial statements, and the biggest adjustment was there's accrued interest it's interest being accrued on the Colorado Water Conservation Board loan that you guys aren't required to repay yet because the project's not done. However, accounting standards require that from the inception of that loan, that interest is accruing. And so we made an adjustment to the water fund and basically put that accrued interest in the liability section for basically at the beginning of the year, so that each year then that interest can be recorded. Because if you don't record it, then all of a sudden you get down 5, 6, 7 years and you got this huge hit to your expenses that actually related to all the previous years. So going forward, that'll be something that Lisa and her staff will record in the accounting records. However, even though we made that adjustment and it was significant, it did not affect our opinion on your financial statements, okay? So that's a good thing. Then on page 3, on the last page there, other information. So this section is things that we've come up with that either are best practices or some things that we think need improvement on, but it doesn't affect our opinion on your financial statements. So in going through that, we're looking at the recreation fund, and I know that's a very well-known fund. A lot of activity goes through it. However, from the accounting standards, so it's being treated as a special revenue fund now, but from the accounting standards, because the general fund and a little bit of the conservation trust fund is subsidizing the expenditures of that fund by 85%, it doesn't meet the requirements for a special revenue fund. And so it will, our recommendation is to move it back into the general fund as a department. And so that's the great thing about your accounting system and the way your account structure is set up, is that the city is able to separate those expenses and those revenues related to those expenses for the recreation and Kids Connection and all the programs that go through the recreation department. So that's one thing that we're recommending during this year, that fund gets closed, moved back into the general fund, and then moving forward so that we are in accordance with accounting standards going forward. Debt service fund, again, we got to looking at this, and when I looked at it, I was like, well, where's the revenue? Well, the revenue was this huge transfer coming in from the capital improvements fund. Well, the capital improvements fund is where that 1/2 of the 2% sales tax is being recorded. And so we got to looking at it, and I thought, well, maybe it's a legal requirement. And so we went back, looked at the bond documents related to the 2008 revenue bonds, and we didn't find anything in there where it said you had to have a specific fund set aside for it. And so as auditors, we don't like seeing a lot of inter-fund transfers going back and forth because you lose the integrity of the original transaction. And so our recommendation there is that, well, why have this extra fund if you don't need it? There's nothing wrong with paying the debt out of the capital improvements fund, because that's where the revenue is being collected at. And so again, our recommendation is to close that fund. Okay. The last one, it's not real significant in my mind, but because there was a comment made in last year's management letter, I decided to bring it up again. We do, as part of our selection process, we pick credit card transactions, we pick checks to make sure that there's supporting documentation. And in this case, there was a few receipts that were missing that we couldn't find. Now again, it was very minimal as far as the dollars compared to the total amount paid. So the majority of the receipts were there. The transactions that had missing receipts did not seem inappropriate for city business, so we didn't have any issue there. Had we thought that was the case, we would have went a step farther and said, contact the vendor and get a copy of the receipt. But again, this is part of your policies and procedures as far as for your credit cards. So we want to make sure that, going forward and Lisa and I have talked about this, and it seems like they've got a good plan for going forward to making sure that all the credit card transactions have a supporting receipt. So that's a good thing to improve on. And then finally, the last thing I want to do is thank Lisa and Forrest and all the staff here at the city. I know this is a transition year for us, and so they had a lot of the hard work to pull information, and sometimes we were talking about 3 different years. As far as the year we were auditing, the previous year, and the current year, and so it really made our job a lot easier as far as going through and getting the audit completed. And so that's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions from you?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now's the time for anyone in the audience, if you have any comments or things you'd like to say.
Thank you for hearing me.
You want to just tell us your name?
Yes, my name is Jesse Ryan Gallegos. I am a pursuant and obtaining a recreational cannabis license for commercial property in city limits. I am the sole owner of the property and have operated business there for 10 years since 2006. I know my community very well, and I am seeking approval from the city as necessary in my licensing procedure. I would formally now like to request a hearing of this board to discuss this matter and answer any questions that you may have. I will continue to operate my current business at this premises until all necessary approvals, licenses, and fees are made and paid so that I can continue to serve my community's automobile needs. I wish to be taken seriously as this is a serious matter. Our community would benefit well from this venture. A ripple effect of economic patronage would hit our little city, not to mention generous tax revenue for law enforcement and schools. It is a new age in our country and state. I love this community and understand its needs and wants. The economy here has kept me alive for 10 years, but I have never seen it reach its full potential. We can't be afraid to try new things. That's what makes our country great. There are pros and cons, I know. Cannabis is here, it's always been here. I want to create a safe, legitimate place to purchase cannabis so that it's not sold on the streets with no control or taxation. It's here, it's everywhere. Help me bring this right as a Coloradan to provide our community and potential tourists legal, safe, controlled, documented cannabis sold in child-safe containers and totally controlled by legal and state regulations, putting revenue and tax form to our schools, city, and county. Please consider lifting the temporary moratorium on recreational cannabis in the city limits of Monte Vista and give me permission to pursue my business venture. And I do have, there are 3 types of taxes that they put on it. The state gets 2.9. There is a 10% tax on it, which goes to law enforcement and other legal stuff like that. There is a 15% tax on it, which goes to, if it was in this town, just the Monte Vista schools and stuff like that, as well as the city tax and the Rio Grande County tax as well. And that's all I got.
Yeah, I think you have a legal question, so we'll let it.
Yeah, and I just wanted to set up maybe a meeting for like the next 2 weeks, and that way you guys can gather some questions and then just so we could talk about it, you know what I mean?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that we have to set up something through the planning and zoning commission.
Yeah, and I do have, it's like basically a dictionary full of laws and stuff that I have to follow, and here's all the applications that I have to fill out. But I got to start here, and that's just one thing I wanted to start. Just some facts. Just in December of 2015, Colorado collected $11.3 million in tax, and 15% of that went to schools, 10% of it went to law enforcement. So it's, you know what I mean? It's just legitimate. I just want to try to help my community and stuff like that.
Okay.
Mayor, may I jump in here just a second? Okay. Mr. Gallegos, maybe I misunderstood or didn't quite understand what you were saying just a second ago. You said you were going to continue your business?
Yes, I own and operate Lewis Auto Sales, the car lot with the big eagle. I paid it off last year, and I decided to take a year off to go help my dad with his car lot.
Okay, but you didn't mean a cannabis business?
No, not a cannabis business.
Okay.
That's why I said to continue to serve my community's automobile needs.
So the first thing you need to understand is that Monte Vista, along with the towns of Del Norte and South Fork and all of Rio Grande County, are what you would call opt-out towns right now, which means that no type of cannabis business has been approved in any of those towns.
Yeah.
So the first thing it would take is a change in the law of the town for you to operate. So that would be step one.
Yeah.
So what the council would end up having to do, and it would have basically probably 4 options there if it decided to change the law. First of all, one option, of course, is not to change it. Another option is to refer the law to the electorate, or to have the electorate come in with their own petition for the law, you know. Or they could just change the law themselves by ordinance.
Yeah.
Any of those options are available, but it would take that before you could operate a cannabis business in the city of Monte Vista. So before they consider the mechanics of your business and where you would locate if you became legal, they would have to make that basic decision. So that's what I wanted you to understand.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So that's a policy decision on the part of the council, and you need to discuss it on that level before you get to the level of your particular business.
Yeah, and actually I'm gonna be at the meeting in Rio Grande County on Thursday, and it's kind of, you gotta start from the top of the pyramid, sort of with the city, then the county, and once I get this approval, then the county's approval, then I can actually fill out all these and send them to the state, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the county does not control what the city of Monte Vista does in that regard.
Okay.
So any application you make to the county would be for a change in the county law also, because they are also opt-out. So these are two different jurisdictions, okay?
Yeah, and that's just why I'm
I
here.
guess maybe what I was trying to say is, so the location that you're thinking about potentially running your cannabis business out of, would it be the current Louis on
Yeah, and I would actually,
That's in city limits?
Yeah, it's one of the last properties in city limits. In fact, I am the last
So
piece.
technically, you wouldn't have to have approval from the county, it would
Just
be
be,
a city
yeah. And that is one thing I opened that business when I was 23 years old, and this city and this county, they gave me they're just awesome, you know what I mean, for a 23-year-old guy to open up a car business and actually, you know what I mean, make it. And I never financed not one car. It was just word of mouth. I didn't advertise on the radio or nothing. It was just my community's patronage. And like I say, I'm gonna reopen it again as a car lot, but I do have this other kind of just a harebrained idea, I guess, of doing this. But I've seen Antietam go from a ghost town to, there are just so many tourists over there. All their motels are full. You know what I mean? I just kind of want to bring some of that down, you know what I mean? Just some of that down here this way. Because the main thing of it is just the tourists, for some reason, they just go all over it. But yeah, I would kind of like to set up a meeting just to answer any questions you guys may have and just stuff like that.
Workshop coming up, and do we have maybe a little bit of time if he wants to bring in or talk about it more, or what would you suggest as next step be?
Well, Madam Mayor, I mean, the elephant in the room is how the council would like to deal with the current regulatory basis, which prohibits the activity. We certainly were aware of the business location. It's, offhand, it's zoned commercial highway. But right now, we don't allow that in any of our zones, obviously. So the issue is really about if the council wishes to make a legislative change.
And just from what I understand, my parents actually own a liquor store in Cornwallis County, and it's basically kind of sort of the same paperwork, but it's not really in a sense, you know what I mean? But I just as a business owner and as a property owner of property in city limits, I just wanted to let you guys know just some of my ideas. I'm not currently selling cannabis or nothing like that. Like I say, it is just a business venture that I do want to partake in, and I just wanted to just address you all and just let you know what's sort of going on, and just hopefully maybe you can put your faith in me. But yeah, like I say, if I could just get on your minutes to maybe, you know what I mean, in 2 weeks, that way you guys could gather up some questions for me and stuff like that, that way I could answer them for you.
So will that work for everybody? If we just add one to the agenda in 2 weeks, and that way we've got some time to research, get any questions,
I'd actually prefer to do a work session with it, and then that way we have the time to be able to research, in Cornwallis County and other parts of the state with regulatory matters, how, the pro, the con, and you bring everything to the table both on your end, and then that way we know what's required out of operating that, how other towns are dealing with this in general, and that way we have all the information, because at least right now, I don't think that we do have all the information as far as like what is required, what are the standards, how everything needs to operate. And I don't feel comfortable making a decision without having that, all of that information out there, as well as the pro and con of having these in that community. So I would prefer to do a work session on it, actually.
I prefer work session.
That we have more time.
Yeah.
All right, so what you want to do?
The next one is water augmentation.
Right.
I imagine that will be,
So
Councilor Lorenz might agree that may be a little
pressing,
and long.
and then the
Ish.
one in August is already like budget, so maybe do we want to do a special?
Well, Madam Mayor, in the packet tonight, in my report, I did suggest perhaps Tuesday, August 9th for a work session. What would be on that at the moment is the emergency management plan, which we've kind of deferred, and the golf course. So if it's council's desire, we could add something on marijuana legislation.
Okay, on August 9th.
I've got conflicts if you want me
Will
here.
that work for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course,
I'll
I'll be available
Would you like to
on
go
the 8th.
first? We start at 5:30.
That'll work. Yeah, I don't mind going first.
5:30 August 9th.
Mayor, if you wanted me at that, I have a conflict on the 9th, I'd be available on the 8th. Or I'd be available on the 11th.
Council. It's a Monday. Instead of Monday before.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, we were just trying to,
Okay, and I could, if you guys requested, I could also get petitions and just anything that you may need from me, I'm totally
I
at.
don't think you'll need to bring any petitions.
5:30.
Okay.
But that might be the course that
5:30.
council would like to see.
Okay, and I do, just because you guys give me the okay doesn't necessarily mean I do get the okay, that just means I can actually start this big stack of paperwork. And there are, it's actually gonna cost about $35,000 just in bonds and all that stuff like that, which a lot of it does actually come to the city of Monte Vista too. And another thing, I did a little bit of research, and you can't open one in a county, it has to be in a city, just because that 15% school excise tax does need to be used. And if it's county, they can't spread it to 3 schools, it's gotta be, from what I understand, just like in Antietam, only the Antietam school gets that 15% tax.
And what I would like to see you bring to the table on that is like, what requirements to open up a dispensary, like as far as like building code.
Oh, I have all.
What you have, what licensures that you would need to acquire beforehand, and pretty much in that whole realm, like
Yeah.
how it would pertain to you, and then we can look up what's gonna, like the different regulations.
It's to the point where I have to have probably 12 video cameras in my establishment. One right when you walk in the door, and it's what it is. It's basically just a waiting room, and where the actual cannabis is sold, there's a commercial locked door where you have to have a ID scanner scan the ID. You have to show it to the camera in order to even get into the room where the cannabis is sold. You can't, I know a lot about it, but you can't enter in the same place that you exit. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to open up in that building there, because I do currently own like 3 commercial pieces of property. But that one is just the best, just because it's on the tip of city limits, just because of the way the building layout is. I already have a 7-foot fence there. It's, do you know what I mean? I'm nowhere near any schools or anything like that. And I'm off the beaten path of Monte Vista, to where somebody that's never been to Monte Vista ain't gonna really see it and sort of say, oh, well, Monte's that's all they're about, you know what I mean? It's just sort of a little kind of tucked away thing. And that's one thing too. Any of the things that you guys do or don't want me to do, I'll be at your beck and call, you know what I mean? Because I have to follow this big list of laws and regulations. But if you guys want to add anything to it, that, you know what I mean, just anything. And one of the things in there too, the city police, the county police, and the state police can go into my establishment whenever they want. They can go in that back door. It's actually a felony for me if I don't let them do whatever they have to do, and it's so regulated, it's not even funny. It's actually regulated from seat to sale. So like, let's just say I did get my license, I'd actually get a badge where when I went and bought it, and see, that's what the state's wanting to do, because it's just being sold, you know what I mean, and nobody's getting no tax revenue from it. So what they're doing, they're just making it to where they document it from the day it begins till the day it's sold. And I'm good at keeping paperwork because I've had the auto sales, and I have to keep my paperwork for 6 years, but it's like the sort of just the legislation for a liquor store, but just so much worse. And I'm even kind of grinding my teeth to even get into it too, but it just is a lucrative business that would be good for me and my community as well, because I've seen the Ant Needle High School just blow up, and they have just so many laptops and everything there. My wife her cousin is actually the sheriff over there, and I was actually going to make a questionnaire for him of how it's affected everything, and I was actually going to present that to you today, but like I say, I just wanted to come and show face first of all before anything, and that way I know everything that you guys need to know. But one thing I am going to do, I'm going to read this about 25 times, and that way if you guys have any questions for me, I can just answer them right on the spot. And I currently do have all the funds and everything necessary to fill out all these applications, so I'm not wasting anybody's time. If something should go through, I can actually just push it through the door right away. And a lot of the dispensaries I've seen, they're owned by like just really old people that aren't even from this state. I've lived here, and like I say, I've been in business here for a long time, and I do just really love this community, and I thank you guys for hearing me. So August 9th or 8th, at what time? 5:30. And thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, thank you. You guys have a good evening.
You as well.
Still your guys' pen.
Is there anyone else this evening who would like to? All right, we'll go for any questions.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Does anybody else have any questions, please? No? I think we're good. All right, we'll see you on the 8th. Thank you. Thank you again. Moving on to public hearing, we have the Monte Vista MHV LLC Montevilla in liquor license renewal hearing, but are we requesting a postponement till July 21st?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Why? Why are we even having it? I don't have any liquor violations. I have one. 3 years ago.
Code violations, no. Council asks me every time they do a liquor approval and license approval, have there been incidents there, and there have. And that's information that I think would be important for you to have in order to make a decision as to whether or not to approve or revoke a liquor license. Not here to make a recommendation, it's information that you get from me every time. So that is the due process.
Are they related to the liquor license? You said there's no code violation.
You as the applicant for the liquor license.
But my status hasn't changed since they first granted the license.
Your status?
I had the same record before, and the city actually asked me to apply for the license. I mean, it hasn't changed. Everyone's aware of it.
Well, here's what the law says on license renewals, because as a matter of due process, you would have to be afforded a notice of, especially if it's a proposed denial. The local licensing authority may cause a hearing on the application for renewal to be held. No renewal hearing provided for by this section shall be held by the local licensing authority until the notice of hearing has been conspicuously posted on the licensed premises for a period of 10 days, and notice of the hearing has been provided to the applicant at least 10 days prior to the hearing. The licensing authority may refuse to renew any license for good cause, subject to judicial review. So if there is a proposal for denial, then you would be entitled to be given a copy of that notice of proposed denial, and that would have to be,
I had the notice on the door since the 23rd.
well,
And that's when I found out about it, when they
Yeah.
showed up with the notice.
I think the notice that you have on the door is probably a notice that would be given a applicant for a new license, John, not for a denial or renewal. So if the council is proceeding in that direction, I would advise the council that he would have to be given notice of any proposed denial.
That is correct. I will be honest, I made the mistake of writing grant instead of renewal on the poster, so that was totally my fault. Rhonda was on vacation and I was trying to push things forward and I made a mistake on the verbiage.
Well, here's my concern, and call it what you want, but in my opinion, having it on the docket at the last meeting, or the last month, and how long does it take for a person to apply for a liquor license renewal and to have it processed or pending to allow, making sure the paperwork's filed for it to get on the agenda? Is it a month? Is it?
From what I understand, they are required to put the application in 45 days, but that can be waived by Rhonda. He put it in on the 23rd and then we saw it on the last.
See, I had it under contract to sell Randy Carroll real estate contracts, and all that stuff fell through. So I scrambled to renew my tax license and all my other operating license at the last minute that I thought I was not going to have to apply for myself. So that's why I did the liquor license and the sales tax and the retail food, just to get all my licensing back, because it didn't close March 1st, it didn't close March 20th, and it all ended up just being I don't know what he's really about, that Randy Carroll, but he's some fantasy guy. He had $5.5 million in real estate contracts that he couldn't close, Quality Concrete, Facet Building, the Monte Villa, the Econo Lodge, he had all these fraudulent notes and wire transfers to sign contracts with that fell through. So that's why, I admitted that I wasn't planning on reapplying.
Well, that's not my point. My point is that if the application was submitted on the 23rd and the meeting was on the 28th, and we got notice on the 28th that there was wanting to push it to a public hearing this following month, why wasn't any of this stuff brought up in the window between when it was brought up and between when it was put on the agenda? Because to me, when it's put on the agenda, that means that it's ready to go, it's ready to be heard by council. And so if it wasn't, then one, why was it put on the council agenda in the first place? And two, why wasn't that stuff, if there wasn't due reason, why wasn't that brought up before?
Man, we're the ones who asked for the public hearing. We control that. No one else controls that. We do.
No, and I understand that, but what I'm saying is that if there were issues with it, why wasn't it brought up beforehand? And
I think what Councilor Martinez is really saying is, we were blindsided a little bit by the request for a public hearing. We weren't quite sure what was going on. And so we simply said, let's do the public hearing in order to make sure that everything is correct. However, we still haven't seen any type of documentation regarding the public hearing. And that, I think, is the question is, where's this going? Where's the documentation at for the public hearing? We haven't seen it yet.
So we're basically saying that we're not prepared this evening to do a hearing because we have it on our agenda that it's being tabled and postponed, and we have yet to be provided any documentation.
Neither have I. All I have is the notice she put on my door.
And that is correct. I had, in going through the liquor code, I had misread a couple of things and I was trying to process it. And it was my mistake to write grant on his poster. He also needs to be, I had read somewhere in there that he needed to be served 5 days prior, and it's actually 10 days prior. So the preparation was my fault.
But those time periods had been met, and I am here to come to what I understood to be a hearing, whether it's a grant or hearing on the thing. here for what I understood it to mean. And so is it played out?
In the interim, this is not going to jeopardize Mr. Nelson's ability to sell liquor at his establishment or
No,
anything?
Mayor, while we are in hearing investigation or it's still pending, his liquor license is valid until either approval or denial is made.
Now the liquor, I have to show, the distributors don't want to send it to you, they see the expiration date as in June. And they see that, so they're requesting the thing and they say they can't sell it to me until I show them. I can tell them on the phone it's pending. Budweiser and Coors don't care, but we're only allowed to buy from 3, southern, they're all out of the not Bay Area, Front Range.
I honestly cannot answer that question. When Rhonda returns on Monday, I will see what we can get done as some sort of letter of pending, so that way you can resume business until this is resolved.
Yeah, it's just for those 3 that sell the hard spirits.
Well, and a point I want to bring up is I want to make sure that we're being fair and equitable across the board with how we're handling liquor license renewals across the board from here on out. I mean, this brings up a point that, that this is going to a public hearing, and which is fine. I don't see a problem in doing that, as long as we're being fair and equitable with the rest of the businesses operating in the city that have liquor licenses out. And should they not have to all go through this process then, if this is what we're doing?
It's the same thing. I think there are questions about whether or not this license should be renewed, and that can only be resolved through a public hearing with information from the chief. I don't know that this situation is applicable to anybody else in town. For instance, Rio Bravo is up next on the agenda to be approved. There are no questions or issues with her application.
Well, that's true, but I guess where I come from is that if there was a liquor license violation during this last period, or review period, and then we had to go to a public hearing like we did for the first time, then yes, then those are extenuating circumstances. But if there wasn't one, and there's just questions, couldn't there be questions brought up about any other business that had it, or any other business that had prior liquor license violation? And I'm not trying to be a stickler, and I'm not trying to be, kind of in the dirt, but what I'm saying is that we have to look at this from an even playing field for all of the businesses that are here, and not just 1 or 2. And if this is the standard, and what I would recommend is what if we were to have a public hearing for everyone, and that way they do have the ability to come up and if people do have complaints about the business, or if they did have issues with it, that they would have the ability to come and voice those, or if they had supportive letters or supportive comments for that business, they could also have that same venue to be able to approach that.
I think we're trying to make this bigger than what it needs to be. I think Mr. Nelson deserves some sort of better answer than we're delaying the public hearing again, rather than just telling him we're delaying his public hearing. There's got to be some reason that can be said at this point, either by you or by chief, to give him some satisfaction as to why this is taking so long.
Well, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, honestly, my office is not directly related to the liquor license renewals, but in this case, this hearing was not properly noticed. I mean, at the very basic level, the posting, which, Ms. McBee has discussed, it wasn't properly noticed. Now, it may seem like a technical issue, but the posting was for a new liquor license, not a renewal. And that, I don't know if that engenders any different thoughts on the public's part, but then you're not really giving the public the opportunity to comment if they do. And you notice, for the most part, we don't have anyone comment on these. But nevertheless, if we posted a planning commission hearing improperly, it would have the same effect. Could you have a hearing, if we go back to the chicken issue, if we didn't have a hearing on the chicken issue on the posted date, then there's a technical error that denies the public their right to comment.
Well, then I would like to extend council's apologies to you for putting you out and asking you to appear tonight, and you were under the impression that there would be a public hearing. We do apologize, and when Rhonda's back in the office on Monday, if we can get a letter to you to give to your distributors so that they're assured that things are in process and you're not
Yeah,
out of
just says that
compliance with a
I'm still in
license.
compliance.
Right.
Well, and my bigger, when will he have the actual, like, notice so that he can hang up in the window? When is the date that he will have that?
Postponed to July 21st.
It is postponed to July 21st. I'm supposed to provide a new sign, and Rhonda is handling the rest of the paperwork that needs to be completed to hold the hearing on the 21st.
All you have to do is just change the date and one word on that sign, right?
Yes, I'm going to change the sign, but she's going to handle the rest of the paperwork that's required by the liquor code.
Okay, so in 2 weeks at council, there will be a public hearing on your liquor license.
And the issues need to be related to the liquor license, right? I mean,
I'm assuming.
I haven't had, we don't have police over there hardly anymore. No one had a problem with the liquor license when it was crazy over there all the time, and now we're open 4 to 10 without incident now, and no violations in 3 years. And that first one, an old enough patron handed a kid a beer. We didn't serve them. And, so I don't understand now it's a big deal when there's not problems there anymore. Well, I mean, where's the problem that you have issue with now?
So I think what we need to know of here is, and there are a couple of ways to handle this. I guess one of the ways you can handle this is if everybody wants to waive all the due process and waive the notices, and they're ready to address the issues, and we're going to put that on record, you can go ahead right now. But if you don't, and you want to go to a full-scale hearing, then what we need to know in order to get the notice out is specific articulated violations, so that he'll be put on notice about that, that are posted and given to him at least 10 days prior to the hearing. So that's what we need to know from a legal standpoint.
Councilor Farish, I guess my question would be then, since it was misposted, would that not be misleading to the public if we were to waive the due process and conduct the hearing tonight?
Everybody comes in and asks, well, what were your violations? I said, we didn't have any.
Well, I guess that depends on whether, I don't know whether you're going to have members of the public come in or not. That's another possibility, Counselor. But I guess one of the questions would law enforcement be ready to go at this time? Would Mr. Nelson be ready to go at this time and address the issues? Or do you want to go to a full-blown hearing on it?
We have the officers who took the information time to come tonight, and because this was on the agenda as postponed, they're on their days off and they were told not to come. I could go off of their reports, but you would not have it straight from their mind.
But you will provide Mr. Nelson that information 10 days prior to July 21st so that he has time to prepare his response, right?
So since we're talking about that, why did those officers tell that kid that put his head through that glass not to pay for the door? They told him if he paid for that door, they couldn't charge me with tampering with evidence. They told him not to pay for that door. Is that police policy to tell people not to pay for property they damaged around here? Is that your policy? I know what your issue is, but I mean, we had the managers from every big R store in the state here setting up that one. 55 people staying at our hotel. And then this clown cake stumbles in off the street and tries to ram his head through the window of the cafe one night. And we come down at 5 in the morning and there's a mess down there. Well, I have 55 people, important people, that I want to make a good impression about this town to. So I cleaned it up. I have it on video. They made no attempt to gather any more information. I had it on video, I collected the clothing for him in bags. You know, the paper machine sat in the middle of the street for 2 hours covered with blood. I had to pick it up out of the middle of the highway, 5:30 in the morning. I know this is the issue and the thing you want to address, but he stumbled in off the front street. He had one drink, he came into my bar, they served him one drink, he didn't drink it. My employees also work at the bowling alley, he only had 2 drinks over there. So what is the issue with my liquor license in that incident?
What are we doing, folks?
What do you, I mean,
I'm ready.
Excuse me, Mayor. Jim, are you ready to address these issues and you feel that you can address them adequately without the officers being here?
It would be better if they were here. They can speak to it firsthand. Everything I have to say is hearsay.
Well, I know this makes you angry, and I can't say that I disagree with that reaction, but I think...
But that's not related to my bar. That's a guy that stumbled in through the front door.
I understand that, but I think to satisfy everyone's questions, we should go ahead with the public hearing on the 21st. Chief's office will provide you with the information 10 days before the 21st. That's 2 weeks from tonight.
it'll give you time.
It'll give you time to collect your video evidence or whatever you have and bring it with you that night.
Oh,
Or if
I've
you
given
have
it to them.
witnesses or whatever you have, come prepared to speak that night. And I know you came prepared to speak tonight, and I'm sorry for that. I apologize.
But without that list of reasons and stuff, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I would definitely want to know coming into something what I'm gonna be up against.
Yeah.
And
No, I mean, I know what they're trying to do, and I know their motivation, and I got it through the guy when I tried to talk to him, and they said, oh, no, I can't fix that window because then they can't charge you with tampering with evidence for cleaning up the mess. And I don't feel that's a very helpful thing for police to say, it's hard enough to get restitution for anything. And then when someone's willing to pay, you tell them not to. So I take issue with that.
Well, then I think you should be able to confront the officers who told that person that and tell them.
Mr. Nelson, I guess my deepest apologies to how this went tonight. We should have come in here a little bit better prepared with this. And so I apologize for the misinformation and everything that happened. And we will definitely work with you to continue making sure that your business can stay operational. The Monte Vista does a lot for this town, and we don't want to take away from that. And so what I would like to see, though, is to wait until the 21st, just because of all the questions that are here tonight. And so, once again, I apologize, and we will try and be better organized.
I didn't bring my day planner today.
You need to look at a calendar of July.
No, I'm trying to remember what's on our calendar, what we have going on at the hotel. Would it be at this time early? 5:30?
It could potentially move to 6, as there's a resolution later on the agenda to move it to 6.
one of our counselors has got a conflict with 5:30, so we're looking at moving councils to 6, but it would just be a half-hour difference. It's the week before Stampede, it's the Thursday before Stampede.
The Thursday before.
Yeah.
Right.
That's, okay, we have the Shriners have their OB dinner the next day. And then I know the Gideons are having their all faith fundraiser there too.
We can have a special hearing, could we not,
You can set it up just as long as he's got adequate
to
notice.
accommodate his schedule since we've...
And John, the council usually designates me as hearing officer on these matters. Is that going to raise any objection from you?
No.
Okay. Just need to know that in advance. Thank you.
So if you could just look at your schedule and let them know if there's going to be a conflict with the 21st, that way we can post a special hearing to accommodate your schedule.
Who do you want me to text if it's all right? You or? Chief or?
Yeah, actually, John, if you want to just get hold of me, I'll make sure you get squared away on that.
So again, we are very sorry this evening that we were not able to resolve that issue. And just please check your calendar and let us know if the 21st works. If not, we will have a special hearing to
think it
accommodate your schedule.
Probably will.
All right.
Since it's Thursday, it's the next day.
All right, well, like I said, we'll try to be more accommodating to your schedule, so just let us know.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, moving on to licenses and liquor renewals. We do have the Rio Bravo liquor, requesting their liquor license renewal this evening. And that's all in order, and
Yes, Mayor.
there are no issues. Wishes of council?
I make a motion that we approve the liquor license renewal for Rio Bravo Liquor.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Kristen?
Councilor Renz. Councilor Schleba.
Aye.
Councilor Schrader.
Aye.
Councilor Martinez.
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye. Okay, moving on to resolutions, we have Resolution 5-2016, a resolution amending Resolution 1-2015, a resolution that sets our meeting dates for the Monte Vista City Council and designating a public place of posting meeting notices. So this is the request to move from 5:30 to 6 p.m. for City Council. Any discussion?
I move that to pass the resolutions by title only.
Second.
Any other discussion? Kristen?
Councilor Martinez.
Sorry.
Councilor Martinez.
Aye.
Councilor Schleba.
Aye.
Councilor Renz. Councilor Schrader.
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye. Okay, so resolutions, we have Resolution 5-2016, a resolution amending Resolution 1-015, setting meeting dates for Monte Vista City Council and designating a public place for posting those meetings.
I move to approve resolution number 5-2016, a resolution amending resolution 1-2015, a resolution setting meeting dates for Monte Vista City Council and designating a public place for posting meeting notices.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, Kristen?
Councilor Schrader.
Aye.
Councilor Martinez.
Aye.
Councilor Lorenz.
Aye.
Councilor Schleba.
Aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye. Okay, moving on to reports. We have the city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councilors. First off tonight, I would like to talk about, there's a request for city water services from Mr. Carlos Garcia, 2633 Sherman Avenue, who is currently on city sewer. Mr. Garcia has requested to be on city water. Now, we have this moratorium, and the reason this didn't just go forward is because we have this moratorium of some age, which I would actually recommend to the council that we investigate removal of said moratorium, have a discussion with staff and our city attorney, and I think there was a time when that might have made sense. But what it did here is not allow us to provide, a reasonable service time. Staff would recommend that Mr. Garcia be allowed to get on city water with the caveat that the cost of connection of his house to the service would be at his cost. I'm not sure with Rob Vance, and I discussed it, and we'd actually have to get on the ground and see if we have to bore underneath the street or not. That's potentially an issue there, but we would certainly provide Mr. Garcia with a cost estimate for the work, etc. And if he chose to do that, then we could provide him water. So unless the council objects to that, do they need a vote on that, Gene?
I think it'd be good to go
Yeah,
ahead and vote on
okay.
it.
Wishes of council?
I make a motion that we lift the moratorium on providing water to Mr. Garcia and eliminate the moratorium and provide water to him.
Two motions in
In the essence of time.
Second.
Any other discussion?
So before we eliminate the moratorium, I'm curious what was,
Well, I think if I may, Counselor, I think that the Mayor Pro Tem's motion was in particular to this one dwelling. Staff will go back and we'll talk about why we had the moratorium, why is it still in place, and we'll provide council with a report on that and a recommendation. We'll try to do that at the next council meeting.
It sounds like what you're saying is waiving the moratorium instead of eliminating the moratorium, is that right?
Friendly amendment.
Because, I mean, that would take the whole moratorium out.
I mean, that moratorium must go back, what, 10 years?
At least.
So
At least that's 20 maybe.
if there's not been any requests other than his before now, there are a lot of people who want to be on city water.
I think it goes back quite a ways, back to
Oh, this-
70s?
I think so. I think this moratorium probably extends for 30 years, maybe?
Yeah, at least. So we'll get you a recommendation on that, unless there's some practical measure, and we'll talk with Rob. I don't think there's an issue per se in providing water there, other than the location of the water lines, which are generally there on the south side of the highway. A long time ago, so down by the trailer court, we did have a gentleman who was extended there. We did have some issues getting the service there at the time, but it obviously worked out. So we'll definitely give you an update on the whys, and I don't know that they're still relevant.
Well, and I would think, for me personally, in the essence of time, I think that those are definitely issues that staff and the Public Works Department, who has that knowledge and expertise, can make it much more timely than putting someone who may be without water on hold for.
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. Normally, that would be like they come in, they want to get on city water, we schedule crew work, and it works. We have another customer we're struggling with right now because of the water table. But hopefully it's not as bad on Sherman as it is on Henderson. Because the water table there is 12 to 18 inches, and we tried to dig a sewer line and sunk our backhoe all the way to the frame. And so we're going to be a little delayed in providing that service to that resident, but they're aware of it.
So, going back to, we had a motion and a second to allow Mr. Carlos Garcia water services at Sherman.
Just to clarify, has that motion been amended to waive it rather than eliminate the moratorium?
Sure. I told you I'm easy.
And that's the second.
Second also.
Crystal?
Counselor Schlemo,
Aye.
Counselor Schrader, Counselor Martinez,
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz,
aye.
Mayor Garcia.
Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, that, actually, when Rob told me about that, I had read that. I didn't realize it was still in place. And then he told me, he's like, yeah, we got to do this. It's like, really? But we'll deal with that. So we already dealt with the workshop issue from my report. So we've set a date for that. Later on in the evening, you're going to have a report from Azarel on the updated economic development assistance policy, which I think you'll be pleased with. Something I do want the council to think about a little bit is the GOCO grant cycle, which, you know, we just got the notice that that's opening up. The applications are available in August. And October 20th, you know, they have that drafting program. You can turn in your application, then they read it, to send it back all marked up. So that deadline's October 20th, the final application due November 3rd. So if the council wishes to think about, so I know we have a couple of potential projects, and maybe the next council meeting, Mr. Vance will be here and we could discuss some of that. I think that would be useful. Next Planning Commission meeting is going to be on a Monday, July 18th at 6 p.m. And at that meeting, and both Azrael and CJ are working on some draft legislation that deals with, you can say it deals with the tiny house issue, but it's kind of broadened in scope just to deal with some of our requirements in our zoning. You know, one of the things that through his research CJ found, which was really interesting, the Planning Commission asked this, is when did we create minimum house size standards? And that was based on the thought that if you bought a house in RL, did you have an expectation? Right now we say the minimum house size is 1,200 square feet. And I know that most of us live in RL, and most of the houses in the city are not 1,200 square feet. So in 2006, when the code was really overhauled, that we created a table, value charts, and all this new modern thinking, suddenly there was minimum house sizes. Never had existed that we could find in the code. So CJ found that, and so, you know, what's the logical basis for requiring a 1,200 square foot house in RL? I think we'll have some legislation that will pare that down more closely to resemble what we actually have, and also provide an opportunity through special review use for smaller housing types, whether they're actually tiny homes or whatever, but it would allow them through special review use. And that's kind of where we started with the council and the planning commission, and now we're circling back, and our interns are working diligently on some of the elements of that. And we found some other, you know, every time you open the code and you start scratching at something, you find a few other things that need to be changed. So I imagine the council will be seeing that potentially at your meeting, first meeting in August. Also in your packets is a letter from the county commissioners regarding the potential rec department. And I have to say, and I have said that in an email to them, that I was disappointed about the way the process ended suddenly. We believe that we had time to continue working on it with them. And if you read the letter, essentially they had already made a decision when they asked us for further details on the potential rec department, which Mr. Ferris worked on and the town managers of South Fork and Del Norte worked on. Essentially at that point they had already made their decision not to include in the ballot, which I can't think of a better word than disappointing at the least. You know, and as we've talked about, that's probably not the end of the issue, but certainly, yeah, disappointing. I can't say much more about that. That's.
How does their approach fit in with the code of ethics that all the communities in the county sign?
Well, honestly, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I mean, that's more of an economic development thing, but we look at, our communities looked at the recreation department, the creation of that as an economic development activity. So I would say it didn't really keep in line with those thoughts, that we're all working together to create economic and community benefits. And as we all know, I think the recreation department would have substantial benefits for all of our communities. Both South Fork and Del Norte and ourselves all have a lot of needs in that area, which now will not have the opportunity for the voters to decide if they agree with that. So, yeah, it was not, you know, and to me, I was bothered by the fact that their letter stated that they had already made that decision when they asked us for more information. So.
Mr. Narberg, I think I would fully agree with you when you used the word disappointing in that, and just like to state for the record that I think it would have been better if the county commissioners would have at least been willing to have some form of communication in that regards before simply deciding, before they had the information even, that it wasn't necessary.
Is there anything that we can do, because the last meeting that they had was stating that they wanted to have a work session to go over like the ballot question and the budget and everything like that, and then this was made without prior knowledge to any of the parties involved in that. And it's concerning to me that was the impression that I left with at the last meeting, saying that we would have that as a discussion, that it was able to be on the ballot in November, and that all of these potentials were there, or the questions that were brought up were answered and said, yes, it is a potential to be on there. And again, for me, it's not, this isn't asking to do that, it's asking to put it back to the voters and let the voters decide if that's what they want. And without that, and is there anything that we can do at this point to be, I realize, I think they said that the cutoff date for the ballot is August. So, I mean, obviously that clock's ticking rather quickly, but I'm just concerned that the ball was held a little too long in order to prevent this from going on the ballot.
You know, Counselor, I think it's possible for us to appear at a county commissioners meeting in public comment and, you know, state the grievances there, and, you know, because at that April meeting, which many of us attended, it was pretty positive. And they said, well, we'll reschedule another meeting for you, you know, to go forward. And in the correspondence I received on June 6th, it said, hey, please send us the additional information, and we can look at it. We'll set up a meeting in a couple of weeks. So then we put together the information, and this letter came, you know, took a long time to get here from there based on the date of the letter. And, you know, it would be possible, I think, for us to go to a commissioners meeting and express our dissatisfaction with the way the process is. I mean, there is still time. You know, according to the clerk, I can't remember the exact date she stated, but she was at that meeting in April, and she said, yeah, you give us the question, and the legal question has been written by Mr. Farish and vetted by all the communities involved. You know, it could still get on there, but I think it would take a strong effort from our communities to go back on the commissioners and say, give it an opportunity.
And correct me if I'm wrong, so we have not only the ballot question, we have the budget already laid out of how those funds would get divided between the Del Norte, South Park, and Monte Vista Fire District also, and how that forms into the overall county department as well as some structure. So I mean, essentially, it's there, it's just a matter of getting it heard.
That's absolutely correct, Counselor. Not only is there the tax question, which is well drafted, but the full detail of the structure, the division of funding, and those things are all present. And if you recall in that April meeting, it was mentioned by, I think, Suzanne Benton, that yes, you know, they could create a fund for that they could put in their budget, and even if the mechanics were not all decided, they didn't have to have the mechanics to have the election. And if the election was successful, then the county could create the mechanics on their end. But it's very well drawn. I think it's very clear what the model would be, and it's partially based on a model created by one of the county commissioners. So we thought, you know, all three communities vetted that proposal, and I mean, I think it's there. I don't think it's that complicated.
My concern is that there are several of us up here that have worked very hard on this for several years. And as much as it pains me to say this, I think it is almost not to our advantage to try. I would agree that we could definitely express our disappointment in the county commissioners for their decision. But at this date and time, with just a few months to go till the election, are we going to be able to adequately go out and sell this to the voters and educate them enough to vote for it. And I really don't want to see years and years and years of hard work boil down to just a lack of time to educate people on the benefits and what it's all going to entail. And also being a major national election, we're going to have a lot of negative people out voting that are fed up. And I don't know if that's enough time to educate those people that are just going to be out to vote no on everything. That's just how I feel.
I agree. I think that it's nothing that we have done in order to do this. It is the hand has kind of forced us to be able to into this position. However, I would, and I guess to put more pressure back on the commissioners then, is that if we have all this stuff ready to go and it is good, then I would still request a work session with the county in order to get this detailed, and that way exact dates are given as to when this is able to go up. That way the group has a better idea of a time frame as to how long do they have to prepare what, and I guess longer than 2 months in order to do that. And because what I don't want to have happen is now that this letter's come out, to back off, we revisit this in November or December and then start this again. We're already there. We need to keep the foot on the gas, in my opinion, and making sure that it's still there and get a date. Whether it's the next election, whether it's a special election, but giving us an idea of when to expect that.
Well, along those lines, Counselor, the last part of that letter says, for the commissioners, we definitely want to continue this conversation. We'd be happy to call a meeting with all of you to discuss this either in the near future or continue the conversation in 2017. So along that vein, maybe we can try to schedule a meeting with them sooner, not with the goal of having it on the ballot this year, but of getting it rung out so that we do have adequate time to get the word out. And we have 3 communities here that would then have adequate time to put it forth.
There's the possibility of 2 brand new commissioners with the election too. Two seats are up for
Right.
grabs in
So it could change the dynamics.
So that could change the thinking of the county commissioners too, possibly.
Jim, did you have something you would like to add?
Yes, do the other cities in the community, did they get the same letter? Are they of the same opinion that Monte Vista is? And when is the next Rio Grande County Commissioners meeting?
Well, they meet every Wednesday. I have not had an at-length discussion with the other 2 town managers at this point, but I'm sure that they are still very interested. I had a brief discussion with Tom Aker from South Fork, and he had pretty much the same feelings that we've expressed this evening. So I think both communities would still be willing to pursue it.
And Jim, the last meeting in April that we went to, and when we pitched these ideas to be able to, the ballot question and the budget, what details needed to be worked out, all 3 communities had agreed and said that this was possible, that they were for that to get it on when they could, as well as several other people on county staff that had said that it was possible also. So I mean, overall, when we left that meeting, it was generally positive, saying that we could do this. It was feasible. It wasn't this unrealistic expectation, and all 3 towns had agreed with the plan that we have pushed forward. So.
Why have an election you know you're going to lose?
That's I guess what I'm trying to say to you, John, is we have put a lot of time and energy into something that to shoot too short a notice. I mean, I guess at this point, just step back, regroup, and give ourselves the time that we need to get out there and really kind of.
So you can win it.
Yeah, so we can win it, exactly.
So is it the council's desire to wait until after the commissioners election or the general election, Or did you want us to set up something prior to that?
I say wait. You're talking to people who've already made up their mind, and they gotta know that it was not an answer that we wanted to hear, so going and telling them again ain't gonna change anything. I say wait till after the election and then approach the new board.
I concur.
I agree, and I think that just making sure that we improve on the plan, and that way when that meeting does happen, we have everything listed out, and working with South Fork and Del Norte, that way they're all on the same page also, and that way, it's one plan, everybody's in agreement, and then we can kind of anticipate any comments or problems with it before we can use this time now to be able to deal with that, and that way come January, we have everything solidified and ready to go.
Well, that will give you time too for us to speak with Del Norte and South Fork in depth to see if they're still willing to go ahead with all the work that's been put into this.
I will definitely do that and discuss what the potential strategy would be, and I would guess that they'll concur, but we'll have those conversations to be together with those folks next Tuesday. So on that note, unfortunately, I think that's all I have unless you have any questions.
Would you like to speak to your conversation with DCI?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So this was kind of a cool little find. Our Mayor Pro Tem sent me an email that she got from DCI about a technical assistance program grant that they're applying for. And if you're an interested community, you could apply for it. And so I got that from Carol. I'm like, hey, this looks pretty cool. Popped onto their website, saw the thing. It was like a Survey Monkey kind of application. So I just went ahead and applied on behalf of the city because, it's downtown economic development. Could we use some more technical assistance? Sure. And so I sent that in, and they had a couple other requirements, which I hadn't submitted yet. And they actually called me and said, wow, you guys are really interested in this. And we started discussing it. And South Fork is interested in the same program. So they seemed very enthusiastic about what we want to do. And also with South Fork, they're saying that's good. We would actually, if we could work with both of your communities, that would be helpful. So I think we have a fair shot at that. They have not been awarded the funds yet, but they will, they'll let us know. I mean, I think that their funding awards sometime near the end of the month. So that certainly was a great lead, and it was pretty easy to do, and I had a really good conversation with them. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that, but it would kind of work into the program that we're currently developing in-house for business outreach. And that was pretty much part of what I pitched, concurrent with our strategic plan goals of providing additional opportunities for our businesses and doing outreach with them. So I think that there's a good opportunity for that, and we should know by August, I would assume. That also stirred my brain on one other thing. So y'all remember the streetlight replacement program, the LED one from XL? So they finally amassed enough projects, and I guess the Valley, a lot of communities in the Valley signed up for that. So sometime between December and March, and they'll give us an exact schedule when they get there, they are going to come do that project in our community. So, that's something to look forward to. I don't know if it'll be done by Christmas, but those LED lights certainly will be benefit to us as well. And I just got an email from them this afternoon.
Also, so the banner's going up, do they do this? So.
Right, so the banners are almost all up. We did reserve some spots for the farmer's market, and she's going to bring those banners in Monday, I believe, and we'll hang those as well. Farmer's market's coming up pretty quick here, so.
When is she going to start? There was a notice in the Courier that Alamos is starting this weekend.
Oh,
It's July
15th, so a week from tomorrow, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our IT report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Brand new IT department to you, not quite here a month yet, still learning how everything works here and where we need to work on and what priorities. I've given you a highly technical draft here in your packet telling you all the different services we're working on simultaneously. So far, our biggest challenge, unfortunately, has been the phone system. We are resolving those issues as quickly as possible. And we have moved those out of the police department into the IT room now. We have not had to buy additional air conditioning, which we thought we might have to right off the bat. We were able to utilize some stuff here in the building at this time. So that was an immediate $8,000 savings that we would not have to expend in building that out. Alamosa has donated a server here. We've used that server to create a virtualized platform that allows us to create additional virtual servers within that actual physical server. And we've proceeded to build, as a report states, quite a few different basic services for security and for a new network. We've got REC telling us that they'll be getting here shortly with new bandwidth for us, and then we will start moving the city's employees' computers over to that new network as we scrub those and clean those. Additionally, we've been securing all kinds of different access points throughout the city. Anything that would allow remote access or anybody to get into the network that should not be there. So we've been securing that. We've just recently, it looks like we've got an electronic file cabinet software that you had properly working for the first time with Cassell, so that the Cassell software can access that through that portal, which has apparently been a long-standing issue that those two pieces of software were not talking. Additionally, we created a ticket system for the employees to be able to send tickets into IT when they experience a problem, and then we can track that and move through that ticket and communicate with the employee to troubleshoot their problems. We've also, we started the wiring when I wrote the report. We finished the temporary wiring between the two locations so that the phone system and various computers can now talk to the IT server. And that's really all from IT right now.
Sounds like you've had a busy month.
Yes, it has been very busy. Thank you.
You referenced IT room. Where is this room?
This is back in the back of the building by where the old finance director office was. Please feel free to stop by anytime. Love to give you a tour. Tell you some horror stories that we found under the building. But you're always welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, we have the Kids Connection Director, Ms. Anika.
Thank you. So Kids Connection is going ahead with this already July. We are in our last 3 weeks of the program. Last day, our summer program's the 27th, so getting really close to being done, and I'm kind of sad because I don't know what I'm going to do for the first couple weeks of August without the kids daycare. June flew by so quickly. We had a bunch of field trips, the sand dunes, splashland, a water day that we weren't able to utilize Chapman Park with some other things they had going on, so we made it work at Kids Connection. It actually turned out to be amazing, and I got to fill up balloons for about 4 hours that all disappeared within 5 minutes. But the kids loved it. So, basically just having fun and failing at every science project we've tried. Even our art projects are turning out to be a complete disaster. We're not great with science. We made some elephant toothpaste today though, and it actually turned out amazing, and we left a little blue spot on the basketball court, but hopefully we'll get something that'll wash it away so I don't get in trouble. Promise it's only food coloring, so I won't stay there too long. On the 28th, we had a meeting with Julie Lourdes, who was a representative from the Venture Foundation. We had submitted a grant to help with our capital project for the new facility, and she contacted us back, wanted to have a conversation with us to get some more information so that she could go back to her board and hopefully get us a little bit of funding for that project. Things seemed to go really well. We had really positive vibes from that meeting. She seemed really interested in Kids Connection, in the new facility, and in the need for the new facility. So fingers crossed that we will get some good news back from that, and Venture Foundation can help us with some of the remaining costs for the project. I've also received an invitation to take part in, it's the USDA Rural Community Development Initiative Grant for Shaping Sustainable Organizations. And I was supposed to have an attachment, I'm not sure if you guys got the attachment, and it was just the email that they sent to me saying that they would like for us to take part in it. It is for a staff member and a board member to attend meetings, just to help with the leadership roles within the program and help find ways to make the program sustainable for the future. We got the invitation, I filled it out and sent it back to her. I had a conversation with her and told her we were very interested in it. So the next step, they will let me know what the next step is, and as soon as I find out, I can notify you guys so you know where we are with that. Let's see. With all the amazing things we had going on in June, we had a surprise visit from the health inspector. She walked in and I thought she was a parent. I said, "Hi, who are you here for?" And she just was looking at me like I was crazy, but our health inspection went very well. We had a couple things that we had to fix on site, but nothing major. Like I came in and told Forrest. So the biggest one was our mop bucket. We have the mop sink in the building, and they have a drain outside that the janitors told us we could dump our mop water in. So the girls are too wimpy to pick up the big mop bucket and dump it in the sink, so we would just pour it in the drain, but we can't do that. So now it takes 4 of us at clothing to pick up the mop bucket and dump it in the sink. But other than that, things have been going amazing. Micah, who was here earlier, the Kid Venture group, has asked Kids Connection for help supplying lunches for their camp on the 19th through the 21st. And I have convinced Karen Chair to send us lunches for their kids. We're looking at about 300 kids a day to serve lunches to. Those are the numbers they are thinking of if they're going to have. I'll post a final number at the end of this week so Karen Chair knows how much food that we need to get. But that's the way that we can do our part. And I wish I could have volunteered our bus and allowed them to take our bus, but we have our camping trip that same week. And so we kind of need our bus to take the kids camping. Numbers to date, as of last Friday, I had 132 members in the summer program. I think I have about 15 more member packets sitting at the desk at Kids Connection that need to be entered in. And I'm getting parents walking in every day or phone calls asking about how to get kids registered. And these are all new kids to the community. I'm seeing new kids that I've never seen before. The kids that participate on a daily basis, I think maybe 15 to 20 of them are regular kids that we've seen throughout the school year. The rest of them are all new faces that we've never seen before. So it's been a whole new challenge trying to figure out how to work the program with a bunch of new kids who don't believe that we mean what we say when we have our rules in place. So it's been a real fun challenge. We've had some really interesting characters to entertain this year. So you guys have any questions for me?
Do you have an update on the building or anything new happening with the building? Or?
The building is we're still on schedule with the building. We did get Ron McClure signed on as the new architect, and everything is still going as planned. We should be right on time to finish with all the bumps that we have in the road. Bob Van Orden has been amazing at making sure we stay on task. So I don't know if you guys have passed by, but to see the roof up there, to see people up there, every day I drive home and I'm looking up there just to see like what's going on. It's really exciting. And if you go look in the building, it's wide open. I'm so excited. We took a visit with Julie from Venture Foundation, and I walked in and I've never been so excited to see concrete. I was looking at the floor and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, so it was pretty awesome.
One thing we did have a cost overrun, and it's because of the windows, where they're located and how they have to be rated for fire. So instead of being $590,000 for the renovation, right now it's $622,000. So we're still on the money of it. So if anybody finds a piggy bank, we keep asking Bob Van I where we found that sack of money that somebody must have buried back in the wall somewhere, but give us Bob, we told we hadn't shown up yet. But he's been very good. He's found some things that really, it took off the cost. All the demo, we had one family come in and do the whole demo of the inside of that building just for salvage. Their payment was what they got out of the building in the way of salvage. So we saved some money there, but we did have cost overrun of $32,000.
Any other questions? Thank you. We have recreation.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Hurtado sends his regrets. He's tied up in a pigtail this evening. If you notice in his report, a pigtail, which is their basically their first round tournament games for Pee Wee baseball. Originally, the pigtail was scheduled, the games were scheduled tomorrow night, but apparently a bunch of the kids from, I think, Del Norte were going to a Rockies game, which sounds great, but so unfortunately he couldn't be with us tonight so that they could change the schedule and keep the tournament on task. The final tournament will be July 15th at 5:15 at the Sky High softball fields. You know, you have his report there. Obviously, they're getting nicely ahead this year on the football and volleyball programs that are upcoming. You see he's done inventory sheets. He's gotten that very well organized. A lot of the equipment is on the north side of the building right now. They totally inventoried it, cleaned, got rid of stuff that was no longer serviceable, etc. You know, we've done a lot of work on the softball fields, and he put rocks. The bathrooms there also have had some, he has the restrooms on there. They've been broken into a number of times and some minor vandalism, but they were pretty horrendous, and the staff cleaned those out. We've put a new lock system, or they're putting a new lock system in place for those doors. That's a lot more robust than was there before. And if we have enough money in the budget, we'll use that same system on the rest of Sky High. It's a cylinder system that's pretty durable, so you can beat on it and it still survives. And so we got cost estimates at, and we are going ahead with the softball fields. He's done a lot of work on the fields themselves, and I think they're in pretty presentable shape this year. So overall, I think they're doing a nice job with the sports. I haven't heard the prior level complaints at all, and it seems like, you know, some of the things they put in place, like making the coaches and the athletes responsible for their equipment and turn-in, has made a difference. So I think the program is going really well. If any of you have questions, you can either you know, get them to me or Jaime, and we'll address them.
Thank you. We have our intern, Azrael.
Hello, I know I haven't had a chance to meet some of you personally. My name is Azrael, and I have just joined the Monte Vista team about a month ago. And I'm here to present to you the new revised Economic Development Assistance Policy. I keep the word revised because a lot of the original policy was kept. I was tasked with reviewing and assessing this the assistance policy, after careful analysis, I deducted that there were 4 main problems. Lack of organization and structure, a lot of unclear, open-ended processes in language and examples that do not reflect the current needs of the city. And also an absence of an appeals process and an accountability piece for those who hopefully are accepted to receive some assistance. In the restructuring program, I did some basic restructuring, like adding a title page, adding page numbering, adding an index, so some very basic stuff. And I also decided to add a mission statement, similar to the purpose, but I think that a mission statement is really one of the things that nobody misses, everybody reads. And if somebody happens to just be looking through our website, the mission statement is very important and clear. And it reads, the economic development assistance policy is geared to aid the new and existing businesses in the city of Monte Vista for the betterment of the economic health of the city and to provide comprehensive quality employment opportunities and services to the community. So kind of a shorter version of the overall purpose. The overall assistant opportunities have stayed the same, and that was one of the parts that was kept a little bit more open. Why? So that diverse businesses are encouraged to apply without feeling deterred or feeling like, oh, well, this assistant doesn't really seem like it's not for me. So there was some specific examples that I included in the priority business chapter, but I still try to keep it a little bit open. It also leaves a lot of room for the city manager and of course council to make determinations on what type of assistant would best fit a business. So it did narrow some stuff up, but it also left a lot of things open and to be more flexible with different type of businesses applying for assistance. And I also added the appeals and accountability piece. On the original policy, there wasn't really, it was almost alluded to that there was to be some type of accountability report, but it wasn't really stated what would it entail and who you would turn it into, so some logistical stuff. So I included that, and an appeals process to give some transparency and accountability to both applicants and to our council and our city government, so that businesses feel that even if they get rejected, they know they can have an opportunity to know why. Or it gives council an opportunity to turn down businesses that they don't believe need assistance or they don't want to be associated with at that time. So that was a lot of information. Do you have any questions for me? Sorry.
No, I think that this is a piece that we needed to have, and I like having the mission statement there. That way we can post that and have that, like you said, as that immediate grab and to have citizens do that. I know that's been kind of the thought process here. Some people have thought that the city council has been anti-business for, they have their reasons, but by being able to put this up there on the website and say, like, this is what we're doing, this is the new, or, the revised policy, and we do care, and that's why we're continuing to work on this, I think is going to be beneficial, and then having it right up on the website is going to be good.
In addition, I have also, through the economic development piece of pretty much a big project that Forrest handed me coming into this position, I've also tried to build a working two-way relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, which so far has been very successful. They've been very receptive. I let them know that I was going to be bringing this to council, and with your approval, they're very willing to also help roll this out, help introduce it to existing businesses or to any new business that might approach them, whether it be locals or out-of-staters. Oh, also, I guess one little piece that I forgot to mention, in the priority business piece, the old policy was very clear in only accepting local business ventures. And as we know, Dairy Queen and Sonic have been two franchises that have been very successful in the city. So one of the things that I also added was to make sure to add, and also possibly franchises, so that they don't feel excluded, whether it be restaurants or ex-franchise, if they wanted to be part of our community.
That's a good point, because it coincides.
And this question might come out a little bit out of left field, but something you might want to look into is, do you have some type of a marketing strategy as to how you're going to, I guess, expose the businesses to this plan a little bit better than what it has been in the past?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So moving forward, with the help of Lisa and Christy, our utility and finance department, and also Rhonda, they both provided me with a contact list of business licensing and also commercial utility building. So I'm using that as my basis to advertise to existing businesses. One of the things that I'm gonna do moving forward is one-on-one contact, the good old way, and introduce this to them, introduce what the city can offer. Also, I have prepared a business city service survey that I can hopefully get them to fill out, that goes beyond just economic assistance and also goes to what type of seminars, what type of trainings can we provide in coalition with the chamber or just the city hosting. So that's one of the ways. And also I'm really trying to include the chamber in this and having them be one of the people to really push this. If a person comes with wanting to set up a business in the city, then to make sure to introduce this. And another hope that I hope with rolling this city policy out is moving forward, building a trust and building relationships between the city and our local businesses or new businesses, so that later on we can introduce them to regional grants or state grants or even federal, and they're more willing and able to do the legwork, to do the bureaucracy and the paperwork, and they kind of almost like trust the system a little bit more. So I guess that's my plan thus far. But if you have any suggestions, please let me know.
I have one suggestion, and I think you guys can choose to do this how you want. So this is something that I pitched like when I first got on council, is using, I know one business in particular that has already used this plan and has been doing very well since using that. I wonder if we could get together and maybe do like a little short thing, that because we're already doing the YouTube stuff, and being able to put it on the website with this plan from like a hand or first-hand testimonial to say, look, I've used this plan. This is where I've grown my business from this time to this time, and then that way it's not necessarily the city saying that this is a good idea. You can hear it straight from the businesses that are using it, and then that way, if they want, they can go talk to them and say, hey, how did this go, and do that. And I've already talked to said business, and they're already willing to do that. So
I would love to get their information and start working with them to possibly do a testimonial piece with them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect time, because that business is also just about to close on a bigger building and expand that business. And so I think it is a great way of showing that, you know, you start out and get a little bit of help and a little bit of boost, and you can grow, and who knows where you're going to be in 5 years from now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be good, and then that way, in essence, with the new website, you know, to have the link on this and have that up there. And Adams State started doing that on their website for their different departments. They started doing little YouTube clips there to give those first-hand testimonials, and it's gone really, really well, and I think we could do the same thing, so.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, since you mentioned Adams State, kind of related, I also had a meeting with Mr. Jeff Ousley over at the SLV Small Business, initially to talk about the incubator process that you guys read, I believe, my memo on that. But he is very willing in coming forth with any type of resources from his staff to provide some of those possible trainings that the businesses may ask for. He's willing to lend those resources out to the city. So.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Any other questions?
You've been busy as well.
All right. Thank you.
So Madam Mayor, just a question here. You've all read the updated policy. I don't know, yeah, if you would, because this really is like our first link in this outreach program, which, you know, we're kind of ready to launch, and I think that, you know, CJ worked on some initial drafts of this, and then I kind of retasked him, and, you know, when Azrael came on, because I wanted her to just focus on essentially this area, which she's doing a great job with. She's doing some other stuff too, but if you could give this your blessing tonight, then we could roll it out. I'll actually tell you that I talked to a potential new business that should be coming to town. They're working on a building right now, and I said, you know, we have these programs, and tomorrow we might have a new one, and they're very interested in it as well. So.
I move to approve the Monte Vista economic development assisted policy revision.
Second.
Any other discussion? Crystal?
Counselor Lorenz?
Aye.
Counselor Martinez?
Aye.
Counselor Schrader?
Aye.
Counselor Schleba?
Aye.
Mayor Garcia?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chief Grace.
Our Citizens Academy is entering its final month. So the
It's my
graduation
review.
is
You
on
don't have to hang
October
out
2nd at
It's my version.
Chapman Park at 5:30, so you save the date.
We get to skip that page.
August 2nd?
Yes, August 6th, I'm sorry. It's one letter from But otherwise, things are going great there. We're getting into the hands-on part of things now, so they're having a lot of fun. I heard that Pastor Ray was on a foot chase, but I haven't confirmed it yet. They're having a lot of fun, and I believe they will be great ambassadors for the community to have folks understand what we do firsthand. So other than that, have a report next time. If you have any questions, I can try to answer.
Will you be repeating the academy?
Yes, ma'am.
Choosing a different night than Tuesday? Or Thursday? Thursday.
Maybe after harvest in the winter, when people have a little more downtime, it might be more.
The hands-on is a little tough in the wintertime. It's kind of hard to go out and do accident investigation at, below zero, but those are real conditions for us. So, we do it, so it should be interesting.
How many do you have out, and have you had anybody drop work, or they all still in it?
No, we had 12 to start, and we have 9 still there. Some folks, babysitting this or whatever. And it is a tough commitment. It is only a couple of months, but it is during December, so it's difficult. But it's moving right along, and it's always like with anything new, you learn what works and what doesn't. And just because it's something that goes in a police academy doesn't mean that it equates in a citizens academy. We can only take about 2% of what's in an actual academy and present it. So we have to make sure that we get the biggest impact for the learning process. So we'll make some adjustments for the next week.
I hate to see it end. Maybe Chief Grayson's glad it's going to end, but it's an eye-opener. And it's an eye-opener, very interesting. And there's a lot that our officers have to do that we don't see. We see them out in the police car going out driving and stuff, but there's a lot goes on that we don't see, we don't understand, and it's been quite an eye-opener and very interesting.
It's good to hear from a citizen's perspective how promising it is. Thank you. All right. Gene?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm working on about 3 things at the same time right now. I've done a draft of the deed restrictions that we discussed the other night at URA to work through those issues about, how much the person, how much the city would have to pay and things like that. So anyhow, I have sent all that to Forrest. I've gotten his comments back. I'm going to fire it off to Mark and get his comments, and then I'll fire it off to the mayor and mayor pro tem for your final comments since you're on the committee there, and then we'll have that set up. So we're pretty much at the end game on that one. On the franchise for charter, I've also gotten Forrest's comments now back on that. We're working through those issues, trying to get through issues like channel lineup, costs, that type of thing. So I expect to have that done within the next few days to a week and finish that up. And then I'll, as soon as we agree on that, and I'll fire a copy to the council, and we can then go ahead and send it off to Charter and their attorney and start final negotiations on that. And also, in the process of all this, I'm also working on revisions to the sign code in connection with the Reed case. We've got one prototype from IMLA on that. There was some discussion at CML on that in the past week or so. We just are having to take and then we'll go to the Planning Commission with that and have them take a look at it, and then probably have to come out with a final draft based on the Supreme Court decision. So those are the three things I'm working on.
Could I add something, Gene?
Sure.
Just on that sign code issue, so there's the big global thing, and then locally, I believe I sent an email to the council about this, but the disappearing sandwich board signs. There's some new supervisors at CDOT, and they have a 124-page manual that includes regulations on where sandwich boards can be placed. And so Gene has that, and that'll play into what we have. It's different than what our code says, and they, say it's based on federal law. I'm sure it is. They don't have a problem with sandwich board signs that are immediately adjacent to the business that they represent. So China Garden's got one, it's right there, the insurance company, they're okay with those. But where we ran into a hiccup was with Rainbow and with Action Sports. They said those businesses were not in proximity, and they actually took their signs without really communicating that, and they've apologized for not communicating that well. But it looks like it's the lay of the land. So we'll need to modify our code for the highway corridors where we currently allow them. They'll have to have more proximity than we have. It created some irritation and confusion for particularly one business owner, because they thought that someone just stole their sign. And, well, you could say that's what happened, but it was confiscated without any communication. So I've talked to them about that in particular, and none of us are happy about that. I mean, it's apparently been on the books for quite a while, but CDOT has not chosen to enforce it.
Just as a footnote to that, I was sitting by a CDOT representative at the CML conference and asked him about the standards by which they determine to enforce or not enforce CDOT requirements within a municipality. And it's, the answer I got was rather vague, let's say that, and not too definite. So it's interesting trying to figure out when they're going to enforce things and when they're not. Just a final footnote too, Bob contacted me in the last day or so, and we've got on a positive note, we've got Bob is working on the project now, kind of the two of us together to some extent, I guess, and he's going to be contacting Stampede, I say this since we've got Stampede coming up right now on the Stagecoach, and trying to get their cooperation for a project and a viewing area for this, and it could be a real fun project, I think, in the future for the council that might be able to ride on the coach in parades and things like that after renovation is finished with that project. So that's just a light matter that I relate to the council. That's all I have.
Any questions? Thank you. Kristen, anything?
No. I have nothing today. I think I've admitted my guilt for the week, so.
I have to admire you for stepping up and taking responsibility. There's a lot of people who wouldn't have done that, so.
Oh, no, I fully take fault for anything I make a mistake on, and that was totally my fault.
We're all human, and we all make mistakes, and, unfortunately, it happens, so. But I do appreciate you taking responsibility.
Thank you.
The only thing, I did go to the funeral for Gerald Vigil, very well attended by the community, and it was a very nice service for him. Goes to show the impact that he had in his own way on this community.
Thank you.
I also attended Gerald's funeral, and I think that, you know, like, he was the voice of Monte Vista, and it's something that's going to be missed dearly here, and having that, you know, pretty much the voice for everything that goes on in this community, and in essence the valley, and I was really glad to see the attendance, and I thought it was really well conducted. I also finished up our plan for the rural health assessment. There's some issues that are City Health is going to take the lead on addressing some more education pieces, working more closely with the VA in order to be able to accommodate some of that. And they're going to be working with the different towns and organizations to kind of get that in place, and that way that we can be better set up for that. Our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, we discussed tiny houses, and the Planning and Zoning Commission decided to allow the staff to be able to look more in depth into the tiny houses and be able to present that so that we have some more information. And then John Best should be providing some more information as far as like actually building them, and then the sale of what we need to do. There's an issue that got brought up about a stamp from the state housing commission that needed to be on some of those. We're looking through that, but I don't anticipate that to be an issue. 3rd Congressional District candidate Gail Schwartz will be in town on Thursday at Java Dave's at 9 o'clock in the morning. So if you're interested, she'll be making a stop down here to visit with people. So if you're interested in that. The only thing that I really wanted to discuss a little bit more in depth is to maybe, I guess, one, going into our work sessions, and I guess I didn't really know until we went to the Alamosa City Council meeting to realize how many additional work sessions that they have for issues coming up, and as we've seen, that sometimes it does become an issue where once a month may not be enough, but some instances we may not have a work session that month. And I guess I just would like to say that I would be open to on a case-by-case basis, if we did need to do something that was urgent or pressing, to be able to have an additional work session as they come up and reviewed. And with that, I would like to say, I think that I would like to see us do a work session with our department heads. And what I would like to do, and that way it's open to the public, everybody can come and see, and that way we can discuss it. We're at the 7th month mark now on our goals and objectives for this year. And I know that some of them are either done or in the process of that, but I would also like to be able to update not only council, but the citizens as a whole, to be able to know where we're at with these projects, and that way that they know that, you know, this is the goals that we outlined in January, and be able to broadcast that back out. And that way, if we have accomplished some of these tasks, we can say, hey, look, we got this done. I know the emergency management is on that session because that's done, and I want to be able to project the things that we are doing, and the things that we aren't, we can address the needs of who's responsible for that, and they get a timeline for when it should be accomplished. And then if it's not feasible, that way we can at least have a response to push out to our citizens, and that way we can be as transparent as possible with what we're doing.
I would definitely agree with a work session with the department heads. I think that would be a good way of addressing some of that.
And I know we meet early, but I would be open to, if we needed to, extra work time, maybe after a meeting, to stay in for a little while. and discuss an important issue coming up. Because it does, it seems like here in the next few months, we have quite a bit on the table now with, it's a citizen requesting marijuana, business, and we have the emergency management, we are going into budgets, so we are definitely going into some busy months, so if we need more time, I'm open to that as well.
Well, and especially with the water, when the water starts coming up, when the court date starts getting closer, I'm sure that we'll want to have some more work sessions to discuss those, and as things come up, to be able to do that too, so. That's it.
Well, I don't have any.
The only thing I have is I did attend the theater meeting, and here's the updated financials on the theater checking. You can tell we're kind of going into those summer months where we dipped slightly from last month, but still $31,853.43 in the main checking kind of everything. They're holding their own, and I think they've got some exciting plans. But they also do need some theater board members. Kathy Armstrong should be submitting a letter of resignation for our packet for the next meeting. So that takes them down to what, Jim, maybe 3 members?
4, I believe.
3 or 4, so. I know we had talked at our Urban Renewal Authority meeting about also needing 3 or 4 members for urban renewal. If we could perhaps put the call out for theater board members as well. And we'll talk to Chelsea. I've already talked to her, but, anybody, if any of you, or you know of anybody who would be interested in urban renewal or theater. Arts, we have an arts council actually that has 0 members, so we need to fill that board in its entirety, so we'd love to have you. If there's nothing else.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, one item that Fred I skipped over was on the DS this evening, and it was a request from the Emergency Food Bank. I don't know if you all saw that, sorry, but we just got this, so it wasn't included in the packet. It was dated the 5th, I think. I opened the envelope this morning and went, oh, well, based on the timing, essentially what they're asking to do is if they could put a donation tub and or a cash collection jar at City Hall, as they do around the community for their Stampede to the Food Bank campaign for this year. And I don't see any issues with that from a staff standpoint, but we'd like the council's blessing, and if so, we'll let them know that they can do that.
You want an official vote, or just?
I think a nod's good, Madam Mayor.
Everybody okay with that?
All right. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is executive session. Do we have a motion?
I move to go to executive session for discussion of a personal matter under CRS section 24-6-4024F and not involving any specific employee who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of city council or any elected official. The appointment of any person to fill an office of the city council or of an elected official. Personal policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees.
Second.
Councilor Martinez.
Aye.
Councilor Shalala.
Aye.
Councilor Lorenz. Councilor Schroeder. And Mayor Garcia.
So we'll take a 5-minute recess and then we'll come back and